When did you realize your own parent was a sociopath? 36 hours after the head-on collision that left my wife paralyzed from the neck down, my mother, I will call her Reagan because I don't see her as my mother anymore, walked into our hospital room and started pushing me to divorce my wife. I'm only looking out for you, Reagan said, asking if I've ever heard of medical debt and firing off loaded questions about if I actually thought my wife could get better. As a physical therapist, I knew the answer was yes, but Reagan was a retired nurse who still thought I was a child, so she called every hopeful thing I mentioned emotional delusional. I remember April's eyes were literally following my voice around the room. I pointed that out to Reagan, yet she somehow used that as ammunition. That's just basic reflexes. Everybody with a working brain should know she's got no chance. The not-so-subtle jab at April's damaged brain actually made her cry, and the second I saw tears, I physically pushed Reagan out of the room. Unfortunately, she was back less than 12 hours later, and she didn't come alone this time. She brought her old nursing supervisor and even a divorce attorney. They tried to sit at my wife's bedside while I was literally moving April's arms, trying to get blood into them. April was crying, her heart rate was rising to stroke levels, all because Reagan and her band of idiots stood explaining how divorce would be a win-win. Reagan actually walked over to us and started talking over me, borderline screaming at April about how she would be a vegetable forever. The most loving thing you could do right now, Reagan said, is free your husband from the burden of taking care of you. He probably doesn't even want to do it anyway. My jaw dropped, but I knew getting angry would only stress April out more, so I resorted to calling a nurse who escorted them out. I went to hospital administration immediately. I laid everything out, yet I was told that Reagan was an experienced nurse who'd worked in this very hospital, that given the circumstances of my wife's condition, Reagan was probably correct, and just a loving mother looking out for her son. Long story short, they'd keep letting her in the room. That night I sat there holding my wife's hand, just reciting our vows and our best memories. When I felt it, her finger twitched. It was the happiest moment of my life. I literally ran out of the room screaming with joy, and when I came back, I hugged my wife ever so gently as to not hurt her. Sadly, the happiness didn't last. Reagan's next move came before the sun even rose. She was already in the room at 5 a.m., this time with her financial advisor and spreadsheets. I tried to tell her April had literally moved, but she just pointed at the numbers. You'll drain your savings supporting her. Yeah, she was once your wife, but that woman is now gone. Look at her. She pointed at April. In 5 years, she'll still be a vegetable and you'll be homeless. Is that what you want? She gave me an ultimatum there and then. 48 hours, she said, holding up 2 fingers in front of April's face before I slapped her hand away. You have 2 days to agree to the divorce, or I'll petition for guardianship. She then leaned in and whispered to me, and if I'm her guardian, I'll just pull the plug. No divorce needed. I clenched my fist, genuinely seconds away from beating Reagan unconscious. Later that evening, I was in the room with April, holding her hand and deep diving on hospital laws and cases like ours. My head was spinning and I was borderline crying, trying to stay strong for April, and that's when it happened. My beautiful wife, when I needed her the most. I felt her thumb on my hand, but not just a twitch this time. April was pressing her thumb into my palm as hard as she could. 1 press, pause, then 4 quick presses, another pause, then 3 more. She was spelling out, I love you, in the number code we'd made up on our honeymoon. My heart nearly exploded. I remember bawling my eyes out instantly. Nothing else mattered in that moment. I began kissing her hands and face, and despite it being 3 a.m., I felt more energized and alive than ever. I didn't even sleep. I called my lawyer and explained what just happened. I had concrete evidence now. April was getting better, and I was sure there was nothing Reagan could do. What made me even more confident was what happened next morning. April and I were doing our exercises, just passive range of motion on her hand when I felt her push against me. This wasn't just normal muscle tension. This was deliberate, forced resistance she was controlling. My darling April knew that we were getting closer to victory, and this clearly gave her strength. I moved her thumb toward her palm again, and she pushed back again. We could now prove she had voluntary control over her muscles. It felt like everything was coming together. But then Reagan walked in an hour later. She'd heard about the muscle control, and in response, brought in her neurologist friend. He spent 5 minutes checking on April, barely touching her hand. This is just a reflexive response to stimuli. It's involuntary. Your wife is gone, son, he declared. That's when I snapped. I yelled that they were insane. I turned to Reagan and screamed at her, what is wrong with you? What kind of mother does this to her son? Instead of responding, she looked at the neurologist. He had his prescription pad out and was writing. The husband is exhibiting signs of psychosis. We recommend psychiatric evaluation and immediate removal from the wife's medical decisions. He signed it and handed it to Reagan. Reagan nodded and thanked him, then turned to me. You have 24 hours left to decide. Full story on channel linked below.